The lights of Station Omega-7 flickered in different colors as ships from across the galaxy docked at its massive ports. Inside the main trading hall, creatures of all shapes and sizes moved between holographic displays showing job contracts. The air buzzed with the sound of different languages being translated by universal communicators. Captain Vexathala clicked his mandibles together as he studied the contract display. His insect-like body stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark chitin that reflected the station's lights. Around him, other Vorthak warriors waited for his decision. They were hungry for work and credits. "Look at this one." Vexthala's second-in-command, Zektar, pointed at a contract with his clawed appendage. "Big payment, easy target." The contract details appeared in holographic text above them. A research facility on planet Kepler 442b needed to be cleared out. The target was 12 humans running some kind of science station. The payment offered was enough to fund their clan's operations for 2 full cycles. Nearby, other mercenary groups were also looking at the same contract. The Nexari raiders stood in a tight group, their reptilian scales shifting color as they communicated in their native tongue. Their leader, Silthor, had earned his reputation through patience and perfect timing. His yellow eyes never missed a detail. On the other side of the hall, the Quantum Reapers floated silently above the ground. Their energy forms were contained within sleek mechanical suits that hummed with power. Zephyr Prime, their leader, processed information faster than any organic mind could comprehend. "Humans," Zektar said with what passed for laughter among his species. "The new species. They barely know how to use energy weapons properly." Vexathala had encountered humans before during border skirmishes. They were soft creatures without natural armor or claws. Their technology was basic compared to most galactic civilizations. Most importantly, they had only been in space for a few hundred years. Against species that had been fighting wars for millennia, they should be easy prey. 12 targets, Vexthala read from the contract details. 1 small research facility, minimal defenses reported. The bidding process began. Each mercenary group submitted their proposals to the automated system. The Vorthak clan offered speed and overwhelming numbers. They could deploy 200 warriors and finish the job within 1 planetary rotation. Silthor and his Nexari raiders promised precision. They would infiltrate the facility silently and eliminate the targets without damaging valuable research equipment. Their bid was higher but included a guarantee of intact salvage. The Quantum Reapers offered technological superiority. They could disable all facility systems remotely and force surrender without risking any mercenary casualties. Their bid was the highest, but their success rate was perfect. For several hours, the bidding continued. Each group adjusted their offers based on what their competitors proposed. The station's automated systems calculated the best value for the client based on cost, speed, and probability of success. Finally, the results appeared. The Vorthak clan had won the contract. Their combination of low cost and promised speed had given them the advantage. Vexthala's mandibles clicked in satisfaction as the contract details downloaded to his personal system. "When do we leave?" Zektar asked. "Immediately," Vexthala replied. "I want to finish this quickly and claim our payment." As the Vorthak warriors prepared to leave, Silthor approached their group. The reptilian mercenary scales had shifted to a neutral gray color, indicating he wanted to communicate without aggression. "Captain Vexthala," Silthor said in heavily accented galactic standard. "Perhaps we could work together on this contract, split the payment, and reduce the risk." Vexthala's compound eyes focused on the Nexari leader. Why would the great Silthor want to share a simple job like this? "Something feels wrong about this contract," Silthor admitted. "The payment is too high for such a simple target. Clients usually have reasons we don't understand." "You're being paranoid." Vexthala dismissed the concern. "Humans are weak. 12 of them against 200 of my warriors. The job will be finished before the planet sunsets." Silthor's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. He watched as the Vorthak group moved toward the docking bays where their assault ships waited. Zephyr Prime also observed the Vorthak departure. The Quantum Reaper's electronic mind processed thousands of variables related to the contract. Something in the data pattern suggested complexity beyond the simple job description, but the energy being could not identify the specific threat. 3 days later, the Vorthak fleet entered the Kepler 442b system. The planet appeared peaceful from orbit. Long-range scans showed the research facility exactly where the contract specified. It was a collection of prefabricated buildings connected by enclosed walkways. Power signatures indicated normal operations. See? Zektar pointed at the scan results. Just like the contract said, a simple research station. Vexathala studied the tactical display. The facility had basic defensive barriers, but nothing that could stop a determined assault. There were no heavy weapons emplacements or military vehicles visible. The humans appeared to have focused entirely on their research work. Deploy Assault Formation 3, Vexathala ordered. Surround the facility and eliminate all resistance quickly. Remember, we want to minimize damage to valuable equipment. The Vorthak dropships descended through the planet's atmosphere like falling meteors. Each ship carried 25 warriors equipped with standard assault weapons and personal armor. Their battle plan was simple and had worked on dozens of previous contracts. As the ships approached the research facility, automated sensors detected their presence. Warning lights began flashing around the human buildings, and blast doors sealed the main entrances. The humans had detected the incoming attack and were preparing their defenses. Standard procedure, Vexathala told his warriors over the communication system. They always try to lock themselves inside. It never works. The dropships landed in a perfect circle around the research facility. 200 Vorthak warriors emerged and began advancing toward the human buildings. Their weapons were charged and ready. Victory seemed certain. Inside the research facility, alarms continued to sound. Dr. Park Mina looked up from her microscope as red warning lights flashed throughout the laboratory. She had been studying samples of local plant life when the attack began. All personnel to emergency positions, announced a calm male voice over the facility's communication system. This is not a drill. Mina quickly secured her research materials and moved toward the command center. She found Captain Kang Hyun standing before a wall of tactical displays showing the approaching enemy forces. His expression was focused but not concerned. How many? Mina asked. 200, Hyun replied without taking his eyes off the displays. Vorthak clan, standard assault formation. Sergeant Lee Day emerged from an equipment room carrying what looked like a simple maintenance tool. All preparations are complete, sir. Just like we practiced. Hyun nodded and activated the facility's communication system. All stations execute Defense Plan Alpha. Remember your training and stay calm. Outside, the Vorthak warriors continued their advance. They expected the humans to either surrender or attempt a desperate last stand from inside their buildings. Either way, the outcome was predetermined. Vexathala watched from his command position as his warriors reached the facility's outer perimeter. Soon, the job would be complete, and they could return to Station Omega-7 to claim their payment. He had no way of knowing that the 12 humans inside the research facility had been preparing for this moment for months. They had studied Vorthak anatomy, behavior patterns, and military tactics. Every corridor in their facility had been modified. Every system had been adapted for war. The humans were not prey waiting to be slaughtered. They were predators who had learned to hunt creatures much larger and more numerous than themselves. The real battle was about to begin. The first Vorthak warrior to reach the research facility's main entrance pressed his clawed hand against the sealed blast door. The metal was thick, but not thick enough to stop their cutting tools. Within minutes, they would be inside hunting the soft human creatures. Begin breach operations, Vexathala commanded from his position overlooking the facility. Zektar led the first assault team toward the main laboratory building. 25 Vorthak warriors spread out in standard formation, their weapons ready to fire at the first sign of resistance. The building appeared dark and empty through its reinforced windows. As Zektar's team approached the entrance, motion sensors hidden in the facility's exterior walls detected their movement. Deep inside the building, automated systems that had been installed months earlier began to activate. Sergeant Lee Day watched the approaching aliens through hidden cameras. His finger hovered over a control panel filled with switches and buttons. Each control was connected to carefully placed explosive charges throughout the facility. Team 1 is in position, he reported quietly to Captain Kang Hyun. Wait for them to commit fully, Hyun replied. Let them think they're winning. The Vorthak cutting tools made quick work of the blast door. Sparks flew as the heated metal began to separate. Within minutes, they had created an opening large enough for their warriors to enter. Zektar was the first through the breach. His compound eyes quickly adjusted to the dim lighting inside the human facility. The corridor ahead appeared empty, but he could smell the scent of human fear. They were hiding somewhere deeper in the building. Advance by pairs, Zektar ordered. His warriors. Check every room, kill anything that moves. The Vorthak team moved down the main corridor in perfect formation. Their training had prepared them for resistance from desperate defenders, but the facility seemed completely abandoned. No laser fire came from hidden positions. No humans tried to block their advance. It was too easy. As the 20th warrior entered the building, Li Day activated the first set of charges. The explosions were not random. Each blast had been carefully calculated based on detailed studies of Vorthak anatomy and behavior patterns. The charges detonated simultaneously at ankle height, where Vorthak exoskeletons were weakest. The shaped explosives sent metal fragments flying in precise directions designed to penetrate between chitin plates. 12 Vorthak warriors fell instantly, their legs severed or shattered by the perfectly aimed blasts. The survivors found themselves trapped in a corridor filled with smoke and debris. Ambush, Zektar shouted into his communicator. We're under attack. But the real surprise was just beginning. Hidden vents in the corridor walls began releasing, a fine mist that looked harmless but had been specifically designed to exploit Vorthak biology. Dr. Park Mina had spent weeks studying samples of Vorthak respiratory systems captured from previous conflicts. The mist clogged the specialized breathing apparatus that allowed Vorthak to function in different atmospheric conditions. Within seconds, the surviving warriors began struggling for air. Their perfect formation collapsed as they stumbled around in confusion. Captain Kang Hyun and 3 other human soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor. They wore sealed, breathing masks and carried weapons modified for close-quarters combat. The humans moved with practiced precision, targeting specific weak points in Vorthak armor. Impossible, Zektar gasped as he watched his warriors fall one by one. They're just humans. But these humans fought unlike anything the Vorthak had encountered before. They didn't charge forward in straight lines or try to match alien strength with strength. Instead, they used the environment itself as a weapon. Every doorway had been rigged with hidden surprises. Every corner concealed carefully planned ambush points. The humans had turned their own facility into a deadly maze designed specifically to kill Vorthak warriors. Outside, Vexthala received panicked reports from his assault teams. 3 separate groups had entered the facility through different entrances, and all 3 had suffered massive casualties within minutes. How many humans are shooting at you? Vexthala demanded. We can't tell, came the reply. They're everywhere, and nowhere. The building itself is trying to kill us. Vexthala's mandibles clicked in frustration. This was supposed to be a simple extermination job, not a complex military operation. He ordered 40 more warriors to enter the facility while he tried to understand what was happening. Inside the research station, Private Kim Saul crouched behind an overturned table in what had once been the cafeteria. She watched through a hidden camera as more Vorthak warriors entered the building. Her job was to guide them toward specific locations where additional traps waited. Saul activated a series of false heat signatures that made it appear as if humans were hiding in the facility's storage areas. The Vorthak warriors, following their training, immediately moved to investigate these apparent hiding spots. What they found instead were rooms filled with carefully positioned explosives connected to pressure-sensitive triggers. The blasts were designed not just to kill, but to create specific patterns of debris that would block escape routes and funnel survivors toward predetermined kill zones. Corporal Oh-jin monitored the Vorthak radio communications from the facility's control center. The aliens were becoming increasingly disorganized as their carefully planned assault fell apart. Their formation discipline was breaking down as individual warriors panicked. "They're starting to retreat," Jin reported to Captain Hyun. "Let them go," Hyun replied. "We want survivors to report back to their commander." The surviving Vorthak warriors fled from the research facility in complete disorder. Of the 50 aliens who had entered the building, only 18 emerged alive. Many of those were injured, and all were traumatized by what they had experienced. Vexathala stared at his retreating warriors in shock. In all his years as a mercenary commander, he had never seen such a complete tactical failure. 50 of his best fighters had been defeated by 12 humans hiding in a research station. "Regroup and prepare for another assault," he ordered, but his voice lacked confidence. "Sir," one of his surviving warriors approached cautiously. "The humans, they knew exactly how to hurt us. Every trap was designed specifically for our species. They studied us." This observation sent a chill through Vexathala's nervous system. Most species they fought used standard military tactics and generic weapons. But the humans had somehow obtained detailed biological and tactical information about the Vorthak and used it to create personalized death traps. "Impossible," Vexthala muttered. "They're a primitive species. They couldn't have that kind of intelligence data." But the evidence was overwhelming. Every explosive had been positioned at exactly the right height to target Vorthak weak points. The chemical agents in the smoke had been precisely calibrated to disrupt their breathing systems. The humans had somehow learned to fight Vorthak, specifically not just any enemy. As night fell on Kepler 442b, Vexthala made the most difficult decision of his military career. He ordered his remaining forces to establish a defensive perimeter around the research facility, but not to attack again until morning. Inside the facility, the 12 humans conducted damage assessment. Despite being outnumbered more than 16-1, they had suffered no casualties. Dr. Park Mina's biological research had proven devastatingly effective when applied to military tactics. "They'll try again tomorrow," Captain Hyun told his team, "probably with different tactics." "Good," Sergeant Lee Day replied with a smile. "I have more surprises prepared." The humans spent the night modifying their defenses and preparing for the next assault. They had proven that superior numbers and standard tactics were not enough to guarantee victory against opponents who understood their enemies better than their enemies understood themselves. Outside in the darkness, the remaining Vorthak warriors huddled around their defensive positions, wondering how 12 soft humans had managed to humiliate an elite mercenary force. They would discover the answer soon enough, but the knowledge would cost them even more dearly than their first failed assault. News of the Vorthak defeat traveled through mercenary networks faster than their ships could carry official reports. Within hours of the failed assault, encrypted messages were bouncing between stations across 3 star systems. The story grew with each telling, but the basic facts remained unchanged. 200 elite warriors had been beaten by 12 humans. Back on Station Omega-7, Silthor received the initial reports with interest rather than surprise. The Nexari leader had suspected something was wrong with the contract from the beginning. His species had not survived as successful mercenaries by underestimating their prey. Vexthala was overconfident, Silthor told his lieutenant Rathka as they reviewed the tactical data. The Vorthak rely too much on numbers and direct assault. They never learned patience. Rathka's scales shifted to a questioning pattern. "Are we taking the contract?" "Yes, but not the same way," Silthor replied. "We'll study the humans first, learn their patterns, find their weaknesses. Then we strike when they least expect it." The Nexari raiders were known throughout the galaxy for their hunting skills. Unlike the Vorthak, who preferred overwhelming force, the Nexari specialized in careful observation, followed by perfectly timed strikes. They could wait weeks or months for the right moment to attack. 3 days after the Vorthak retreat, Nexari ships entered the Kepler 442b system. Instead of approaching the planet directly, they positioned themselves in the asteroid belt where they could observe without being detected. Long-range sensors focused on the human research facility while the Nexari began their patient surveillance. "What do you see?" Silthor asked his sensor operator. 12 heat signatures inside the facility, the operator replied. They maintain regular schedules, shift changes every 8 hours. 2 guards patrol the perimeter at all times. Silthor studied the data patterns on his displays. The humans appeared to be following standard security procedures. Nothing suggested they were aware of being watched. Perhaps they had grown overconfident after their victory over the Vorthak. For 2 weeks, the Nexari monitored every aspect of human activity. They recorded movement patterns, identified individual humans by their unique heat signatures, and mapped the facility's defensive systems. Slowly, a picture emerged of a small research team trying to maintain military alertness while conducting scientific work. Dr. Park Mina had been studying the local wildlife during this period, but she noticed subtle changes in animal behavior that concerned her. Native creatures that normally approached the facility for food scraps had become nervous and distant. Birds changed their flight patterns to avoid certain areas of the sky. Something is watching us, she told Captain Kang Hyun during their morning briefing. Hyun studied her wildlife observation data with interest. You're sure about this? Animals don't lie, Mina replied. Their instincts tell them when predators are near, even if those predators are well hidden. Hyun activated the facility's long-range sensors and began searching for signs of hidden observers. The Nexari ships were too distant and well concealed to detect directly, but their presence was affecting the planet's electromagnetic field in subtle ways. Lee Day, Hyun called to his sergeant. We're being hunted. Lee Day looked up from the explosive devices he was maintaining. Same tactics as last time? No. These ones are more patient. They're studying us before they attack. The human team began adapting their routines while appearing to maintain normal patterns. They created false schedules that would mislead observers while secretly preparing for a different kind of battle. Private Kim Sol and Corporal Oh Jin specialized in counter-surveillance. Techniques learned from years of military training. If they want to watch us, let's give them something interesting to see, Sul suggested. The humans began implementing deception tactics. They created false heat signatures using modified equipment to make it appear as if additional people were present in the facility. They established fake patrol routes that would draw attackers toward prepared ambush sites. Most importantly, they began practicing rapid evacuation procedures. After 2 weeks of observation, Silthor felt confident he understood the human defensive patterns. The research facility had 12 occupants who followed predictable schedules. Their security was adequate but not exceptional. Most importantly, they seemed focused on their scientific work rather than military preparedness. We strike tomorrow night, Silthor announced to his raiders, during their shift change when their guards are rotating positions. The Nexari assault plan relied on stealth and precision timing. 30 warriors would infiltrate the facility in small groups, eliminate the humans silently, and extract valuable research data without damaging equipment. It was the kind of operation the Nexari had perfected over centuries of mercenary work. As the planet's sun set, Nexari dropships descended toward Kepler 4482b using advanced cloaking technology. They landed several kilometers from the research facility and began their approach on foot. Each warrior carried specialized equipment designed for silent infiltration and quick elimination of targets. Silthor led the first group toward the facility's main entrance. Through his night vision equipment, he could see 2 human guards patrolling the perimeter exactly as his surveillance had predicted. Everything appeared normal and according to plan. The Nexari moved like shadows through the darkness, using natural terrain features to conceal their approach. Years of hunting experience guided their steps as they closed in on their prey. Within minutes, they would be inside the facility and the contract would be complete. But as the first Nexari warriors reached the facility's outer sensors, they triggered alarms that should not have been there. Hidden motion detectors that had not appeared during their surveillance suddenly came online, bathing the area in harsh spotlights. Trap! Silthor hissed into his communicator, but it was already too late. The facility appeared to be completely empty. The heat signatures they had been tracking for weeks suddenly vanished, leaving only empty buildings and activated defense systems. The humans had somehow detected the Nexari surveillance and prepared accordingly. From concealed positions in the surrounding forest, human voices called out in the darkness. They were not speaking in standard galactic languages but in their native tongue, making it impossible for universal translators to provide real-time interpretation. Captain Kang Hyun had relocated his entire team to prepared positions outside the facility. They used the forest terrain to their advantage, creating overlapping fields of fire that would catch the Nexarian crossfire, regardless of which direction they tried to escape. "Welcome to our world," Hyun called out in Galactic Standard. "We've been waiting for you." The next 3 days became a nightmare for the Nexari raiders. The humans had turned the planet itself into a hunting ground, using their knowledge of local terrain and wildlife to track the alien mercenaries through the forest. Every time the Nexari tried to regroup, human soldiers appeared from unexpected directions. Private Kim Sol moved through the forest like she had been born there, using skills learned during survival training on a dozen different worlds. She could track Nexari movement by disturbed vegetation and predict their likely hiding spots based on their species' natural instincts. Corporal Oh Jin used modified hunting equipment to monitor Nexari communications and jam their coordination efforts. Without effective communication, the alien warriors became isolated and vulnerable to individual elimination. Sergeant Lee Day had prepared special surprises throughout the forest. Explosive devices hidden in hollow trees and buried under natural-looking debris created random hazards that kept the Nexari constantly nervous and off balance. By the third day, only 8 Nexari warriors remained alive, including Silthor himself. The mercenary leader who had once been known for his patience and perfect timing now found himself running through alien forests while being hunted by creatures he had vastly underestimated. "How are they doing this?" Rathka gasped as they crouched behind a fallen log trying to avoid human patrols. "They're not defending," Silthor realized with growing horror. "They're hunting us. They enjoy this." The final assault came at dawn on the 4th day. The surviving Nexari raiders were exhausted, demoralized, and completely lost in unfamiliar terrain. When the humans closed in for the final elimination, the aliens offered no effective resistance. Silthor managed to escape only because Captain Hyun allowed him to do so. The human leader wanted at least one survivor to return to the mercenary networks with a report of what had happened. As his badly damaged ship limped away from Kepler 442b, Silthor composed a message to the Galactic Mercenary Councils. The humans were not simply defending their research facility. They were predators who had turned warfare into a form of entertainment. The message would reach the Quantum Reapers within days, but Zephyr Prime had already begun analyzing the tactical data from both failed missions. The energy being was starting to understand that humanity posed a threat unlike anything the galaxy had encountered before. The Quantum Reaper's ship drifted silently through space as Zephyr Prime processed the tactical data from both mercenary failures. Unlike organic minds that relied on emotion and instinct, the energy being approached the problem with pure logic and computational analysis. Data streams flowed through Zephyr Prime's consciousness at incredible speeds. Every detail of the Vorthak assault and Nexari infiltration was broken down into component variables and cross-referenced against known military doctrines from across the galaxy. The results troubled even a mind capable of processing millions of calculations per second. "Analysis complete," Zephyr Prime announced to the other Quantum Reapers gathered in the ship's command center. Previous failures were not due to tactical errors or insufficient preparation. The other energy beings waited for elaboration. Each Quantum Reaper was capable of individual thought, but they functioned most effectively when sharing information through their collective network. "The humans demonstrate adaptive intelligence beyond known parameters for their species," Zephyr Prime continued. "They modify tactics in real time based on enemy behavior patterns. More significantly, they appear to derive satisfaction from combat situations that would cause psychological trauma in most sapient species." Fluxion, Zephyr Prime's second-in-command, processed this information. "Recommendation: direct assault and stealth infiltration have both failed against human psychological and tactical adaptability," Zephyr Prime replied. We will instead employ technological superiority to create conditions where human adaptability becomes irrelevant. The Quantum Reapers possess technology far beyond anything available to the Vorthak or Nexari. Their energy-based existence allowed them to interface directly with electronic systems and manipulate matter at the quantum level. They could phase through solid barriers, disable power systems remotely, and control electromagnetic fields. We will systematically eliminate the facility's life support, power generation, and communication systems, Zephyr Prime explained. The humans will be forced to surrender or die slowly from environmental exposure. Their tactical skills become meaningless, without a habitat to defend. It was an elegant solution that played to Quantum Reaper strengths while avoiding the mistakes of previous attackers. There would be no direct confrontation where human unpredictability could create unexpected outcomes. 3 days later, the Quantum Reaper ship entered the Kepler 442b system, using advanced cloaking technology that made them invisible to both visual and electronic detection. They positioned themselves in high orbit where they could observe the human facility, while remaining completely undetectable. The research station appeared normal from orbital scans. 12 human life signs moved through the buildings following routine schedules. Power systems operated at normal levels. Communication arrays transmitted regular status reports to human authorities in other systems. "Begin Phase 1, Zephyr Prime commanded. The first Quantum Reaper materialized inside the facility's main power generator. The energy being's form allowed it to exist within the mechanical systems without triggering physical sensors or alarms. Working at the quantum level, it began disrupting the nuclear fusion reactions that provided power to the entire complex. Dr. Park Mina noticed the power fluctuations first. The lights in her laboratory flickered briefly before emergency backup systems activated. Temperature readings throughout the facility began showing minor variations as environmental controls struggled with reduced power input. "We have a problem," she reported to Captain Kang Hyun over the internal communication system. Hyun arrived at the power station within minutes, accompanied by Specialist Bang Yong, their technical expert. Yong's instruments detected anomalous quantum field variations within the fusion reactor chamber, but the readings made no sense according to known physics. "This isn't mechanical failure," Yong reported. "Something is manipulating the reactor at a subatomic level." "Sabotage?" Hyun asked. "More like direct interference from an intelligence that understands quantum mechanics better than we do," Yong replied grimly. The humans had encountered Quantum Reapers during previous conflicts, but always as allies or neutral parties. They knew the energy beings possessed advanced technology, but they had never faced them as enemies. Over the following hours, more systems began failing throughout the facility. The communication array stopped transmitting outbound messages. Water recycling systems developed mysterious malfunctions. Even sealed food storage containers somehow began losing atmospheric pressure. "They're trying to kill us slowly," Sergeant Lee Day observed during an emergency team meeting. "Make us suffer until we surrender." Captain Hyun studied the pattern of system failures. Each malfunction was precisely targeted to create maximum discomfort while keeping the humans alive long enough to consider surrender. It was psychological warfare at its most sophisticated level. "Can we repair the damage?" Hyun asked Yong. "Not while they're actively interfering with our systems," the specialist replied. "Every time I fix something, it breaks again within minutes." Private Kim Sol monitored the facility's external sensors from the command center. No ships detected in orbit, no ground forces approaching. How are they doing this remotely? The answer came when Corporal Oh Jin detected energy signatures moving through the facility's walls. His modified sensors, originally designed to track Nexari infiltrators, picked up quantum field distortions that suggested invisible intruders. "They're inside the building," Jin reported, "moving through solid matter like it doesn't exist." This revelation changed everything. The humans were not facing a remote technological attack, but direct infiltration by entities that could ignore physical barriers. Traditional defensive tactics would be completely ineffective against enemies that could appear anywhere at any time. Captain Hyun made a decision that would have seemed insane to any conventional military commander. Instead of trying to defend against an enemy they couldn't effectively fight, he would force them into a direct confrontation on human terms. "Prepare to evacuate the facility," he ordered. "All essential equipment and research data to the emergency bunkers. Lee Day, I need you to prepare the ultimate surprise." Lee Day's expression brightened with anticipation. "The electromagnetic pulse bomb?" "Exactly. If these enemies are energy-based, a massive EMP should disrupt their cohesion and force them into material form." The humans had been secretly preparing for exactly this scenario since their first encounter with quantum reapers months earlier. Dr. Park Mina's research into energy-based life forms had suggested potential vulnerabilities, and Lee Day had designed a weapon specifically to exploit them. As the facility's life support systems continued failing, the humans appeared to panic. They sent desperate distress signals and began arguing loudly about whether to surrender. The quantum reapers monitored these communications and prepared for imminent human capitulation. But the arguments were theater, and the distress signals contained hidden activation codes for previously positioned equipment throughout the facility. "All personnel to safe positions," Hyun announced quietly over short-range communicators. "Execute Operation Lightning Storm." The humans evacuated to specially shielded bunkers they had constructed months earlier. Lee Day armed the electromagnetic pulse device, a modified fusion reactor designed to release its entire energy output as directed electromagnetic radiation. When the device detonated, it released an EMP wave powerful enough to disrupt electronic systems across several kilometers. More importantly, the wave was specifically calibrated to interfere with the quantum field patterns that allowed quantum reapers to maintain their energy-based forms. Throughout the facility, invisible enemies suddenly became visible as their energy matrices collapsed. 5 quantum reapers found themselves trapped in solid mechanical bodies, unable to phase through matter or manipulate systems remotely. "Now we fight on equal terms," Captain Hyun announced as his team emerged from the bunkers. The quantum reapers had never experienced physical vulnerability before. Their mechanical bodies were strong but clumsy compared to their energy forms. They found themselves facing human soldiers in direct combat for the first time in their species' history. Sergeant Lee Day led the assault with improvised weapons designed for close-quarters combat. The Quantum Reapers' advanced technology became irrelevant when they could no longer access it effectively. Private Kim Sol used her forest fighting experience to outmaneuver the confused aliens. Corporal Oh Jin jammed their attempts to coordinate with their ship in orbit. Within hours, 3 Quantum Reapers had been eliminated, and the remaining 2 were trapped in the facility's lower levels. Zephyr Prime managed to escape only because its mechanical form was more advanced than those of its subordinates. As the damaged Quantum Reaper ship fled the system, Zephyr Prime processed the tactical implications of this defeat. The humans had somehow anticipated their attack method and prepared specific countermeasures. More disturbing still, they had turned technological superiority against itself. The energy being began composing reports for the Galactic Mercenary councils. The humans were not just tactically adaptable or psychologically resilient. They were capable of preparing for threats they had never directly encountered before, using theoretical knowledge to create practical solutions. They were, Zephyr Prime realized. The most dangerous space station Omega-7 had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. In the station's largest conference chamber, 3 mercenary groups that normally competed for contracts sat around the same table, sharing information that could have been worth millions of credits. Captain Vexithala's chitin armor still bore scars from the explosive traps that had decimated his warriors. Silthor's scales had lost their natural shine, a sign of deep psychological trauma in Nexari physiology. Zephyr Prime's mechanical form showed visible damage from the electromagnetic pulse that had forced it into vulnerable matter. "We need to understand what happened," Vexthala began, his mandibles clicking nervously. 3 separate assault methods, 3 complete failures. This cannot be coincidence." "It's not coincidence," Silthor replied, his voice carrying unusual stress markers. "The humans were prepared for all of us. They knew our tactics before we arrived." Zephyr Prime projected holographic displays showing tactical analysis from all 3 encounters. The data streams contained detailed breakdowns of human responses, timing patterns, and strategic adaptations. Initial hypothesis: humans possess advanced intelligence gathering capabilities, the energy being announced. Analysis contradicts this theory. Human technology remains inferior to galactic standards. Then how? Vexathala demanded. How did 12 primitives defeat 600 of the galaxy's best warriors? The answer came from an unexpected source. A small figure stepped forward from the chamber's observation area. Commander Yul-Tai wore the simple uniform of the human diplomatic corps, but his presence commanded immediate attention from all three mercenary leaders. Because we studied you, Tai said simply. All of you, for months. The mercenary leaders stared at the human diplomat, in shock. He was smaller than any of them, carried no visible weapons, and appeared completely harmless. Yet something in his calm demeanor suggested that he was far more dangerous than he appeared. You're from the research facility? Silthor asked. No, Tai replied. I'm here to offer you a deal. Cancel your contracts and withdraw from human space, and we'll consider this matter closed. Vexathala's compound eyes focused on the human. You dare threaten us? After what your people did to our warriors? I'm not threatening anyone, Tai said calmly. I'm explaining reality. Your warriors attacked a research facility staffed by human special forces soldiers pretending to be scientists. You were set up. This revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled mercenaries. They had not been fighting desperate researchers defending their laboratory. They had been fighting elite human military personnel who had been expecting them. Zephyr Prime processed this information at quantum speeds. Probability analysis indicates human deception was planned from initial contract posting. Exactly, Tai confirmed. The Galactic Trade Consortium never posted that contract. We did, using their systems. We wanted to see what you could do against us. The implications were staggering. The humans had deliberately attracted mercenary attention to study alien military capabilities. They had used their own people as bait to learn how different species fought wars. Why? Silthor asked. Because we're new to the galaxy, and we wanted to understand the threats we might face, Tai explained. Now we do. Zephyr Prime activated additional data displays showing human tactical adaptations during each encounter. The analysis revealed patterns that had been invisible during the actual fighting, but became obvious in hindsight. Observe. Humans modified defensive strategies in real time based on enemy behavior. The energy being announced. Vorthak assault. Triggered anti-personnel explosives and chemical agents. Nexari infiltration prompted evacuation to prepared forest positions. Quantum Reaper technological superiority, countered by electromagnetic pulse weapons. They learned to fight us by fighting. Us, Vexthala realized with growing horror. And they enjoyed it, Silthor added, his scales shifting to colors indicating deep unease. I watched them hunt my warriors through the forest. They were smiling. Commander Tai neither confirmed nor denied this observation. Instead, he activated his own holographic display showing footage from the research facility's security cameras. The mercenary leaders watched in fascination and growing alarm as human soldiers moved through combat situations with expressions of focused concentration, rather than fear or desperation. Captain Kang Hyun coordinated defenses while maintaining calm confidence. Sergeant Lee Day prepared explosive traps with obvious satisfaction. Dr. Park Mina analyzed alien biology to identify weaknesses while explosions echoed through her laboratory. These are not normal reactions, Zephyr Prime observed. Most sapient species experience stress, fear, or aggression during combat. Humans display indicators of enjoyment. We call it adrenaline, Tai explained. It makes us faster, stronger, and more alert during dangerous situations. We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us, so we learned to thrive under pressure. This explanation made the mercenary failures make sense in a terrifying way. The humans had not just been defending themselves. They had been in their natural element, facing the kind of challenges their species had evolved to overcome. There's more, Tai continued, activating additional displays. We've been analyzing your combat footage to understand how other species fight. We're particularly interested in your coordination methods. weapon technologies, and tactical doctrines. The recorded battles showed human observers taking detailed notes on alien military capabilities. Every weapon discharge, every tactical formation, every communication protocol had been documented and studied. "You used us," Vexithala accused. "We learned from you," Tai corrected. "There's a difference, and now we're sharing that knowledge." New holographic displays showed human military academies where officers studied alien tactical methods, training facilities where human soldiers practiced countering different species' fighting styles, research laboratories where human scientists developed weapons specifically designed to exploit alien biological weaknesses. 12 humans defeated 600 of our best warriors, Silthor said slowly. "How many humans are there in your military?" "Several billion," Tay replied casually. "But most of them are still learning to fight aliens. The 12 you encountered are considered average by our special forces standards." This statement created dead silence in the conference chamber. If 12 average human special forces soldiers could defeat elite alien mercenary units, what could their best warriors accomplish? "We're sharing this information because we want peace, not war," Tay continued. "Humans are naturally good at fighting, but we prefer cooperation when possible. However, we also want the galaxy to understand that attacking human territories is not profitable." Zephyr Prime's mechanical form hummed as it processed vast amounts of tactical data. "Recommendation: immediate cessation of all contracts involving human targets." "Agreed," Vexithala said quickly. "The Vorthak clan formally withdraws from all operations in human space." "The Nexari raiders concur," Silthor added. "We will spread word through mercenary networks that human contracts carry unacceptable risk levels." Commander Tay nodded approvingly. "Excellent. We'll be monitoring galactic communications to ensure this information spreads appropriately. Any mercenary group that ignores these warnings will discover why we chose to settle the matter with words. First." As the meeting concluded, the three mercenary leaders shared a final realization that chilled them more than any battlefield defeat. The humans had not just won 3 tactical victories, they had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy by demonstrating that technological superiority and numerical advantage meant nothing against opponents who could adapt, learn, and improvise faster than established military doctrines could respond. The age of easy contracts against primitive human targets was over. A new chapter in galactic military history had begun, and humanity had written the first page in the blood of 600 alien warriors who had learned too late that some prey species are actually apex predators in disguise. 6 months after the Mercenary Council meeting, the research facility on Kepler 442b had transformed into something no one had expected. Ships from dozens of different species regularly landed at the expanded spaceport, carrying visitors who came not as enemies but as students and partners. Dr. Parkmina stood in her new laboratory, which was now 3 times larger than the original facility. Around her, alien scientists from across the galaxy worked alongside human researchers, sharing knowledge that advanced understanding for all species involved. The Altarian protein samples show remarkable similarity to Earth amino acid structures, she explained to her mixed audience of human and alien graduate students. This suggests parallel evolutionary pathways despite completely different planetary conditions. In the next building, Captain Kang Hyun reviewed tactical simulations with a class of young officers from the Centauri Defense Force. The humans had discovered that their ability to adapt quickly to new situations made them excellent teachers of flexible military doctrine. The key is not to memorize specific responses to specific threats, Hyun explained to his attentive students. Instead, learn to recognize patterns and adapt your strategies based on what your opponents do, not what you expect them to do. A Vorthak lieutenant raised his clawed appendage. But Captain, this requires abandoning established military protocols that have worked for our species for thousands of years. Those protocols worked against enemies who followed similar patterns, Hyun replied. But what happens when you encounter opponents who don't fight the way you expect? Adaptation is more valuable than tradition when survival is at stake. The facility's transformation reflected larger changes occurring throughout the galaxy. Word, of the mercenary defeats had spread far beyond military circles, creating ripple effects no one had anticipated. At the Galactic Trade Consortium's headquarters, executives reviewed reports showing dramatic shifts in contract patterns. Mercenary groups that had once eagerly bid on any available job now carefully screened potential targets to avoid human involvement. Mercenary availability has declined by 40% in the past 6 months, reported the consortium's military liaison. Most groups are demanding hazard pay premiums for any contracts in human space. How much of a premium? Asked the consortium chairman. Between 300 and 500% above standard rates, came the uncomfortable reply. Some groups are refusing human contracts entirely regardless of payment offered. This market disruption had unexpected consequences. Species that had relied on mercenary forces to settle territorial disputes found themselves forced to negotiate diplomatic solutions instead. The mere possibility of human involvement had made military options too expensive for most conflicts. Commander Yultai received daily reports on these developments from human diplomatic posts throughout the galaxy. His meeting with the mercenary leaders had achieved far more than anticipated. Humanity's reputation as formidable opponents had become a deterrent that prevented conflicts from starting in the first place. The Rigel Confederation and the Proxima Alliance have agreed to mediation, rather than military action, Tay reported during a secure communication with Earth Military Command. Neither side wants to risk human intervention. Have we been asked to intervene? Asked General Park Su, the human military's senior strategist. No, but both sides assume we might if fighting spreads to neutral trade routes, Tay replied. Our reputation is doing the work for us. This phenomenon had created an interesting paradox. Humans had become the galaxy's most feared warriors without actually fighting any major conflicts. The 12 Special Forces soldiers who had defeated 3 mercenary groups had accomplished more through reputation than entire fleets might have achieved through direct action. Back on Kepler 442b, Sergeant Lee Day supervised the construction of the galaxy's first integrated military training facility. Human instructors worked alongside alien specialists to develop new tactical doctrines that combined human adaptability with alien technological advantages. The gravitational manipulation fields give us 3-dimensional combat options we never had before, Lee Day explained to a group of Quantum Reaper students learning human infantry tactics. But you need to practice thinking in multiple gravity orientations until it becomes instinctive. The irony was not lost on any of the participants. The same Quantum Reapers who had tried to eliminate the research facility were now paying substantial fees to learn from the humans who had defeated them. Zephyr Prime served as the senior alien instructor at the facility. The energy being's analytical capabilities proved invaluable for developing training programs that could adapt to different species' physiological and psychological requirements. Human tactical flexibility represents an evolutionary advantage we did not anticipate, Zephyr Prime explained to a mixed class of alien military officers. Their ability to process multiple variables simultaneously and generate novel solutions exceeds standard computational models. Are you saying humans are more intelligent than other species? Asked a student. Intelligence is not the correct term, Zephyr Prime replied after processing the question for several seconds. Humans demonstrate superior pattern recognition and adaptive response generation under stress conditions. This creates tactical advantages that manifest as apparent intelligence, but may actually represent different neural architecture. These academic discussions had practical implications throughout the galaxy. Military academies began revising curricula to include human tactical theory. Defense contractors developed new weapon systems based on human concepts of flexible response, rather than overwhelming superiority. Most significantly, the definition of military strength itself was changing. Traditional measures like fleet size, firepower, and technological advancement were being supplemented by assessments of adaptability, creativity, and psychological resilience. Private Kim Sol found herself teaching survival skills to alien special forces units who had never needed to consider what happened when superior technology failed. Her forest fighting techniques, developed on Earth's challenging terrain, proved applicable to dozens of different planetary environments. Technology can fail, communications can be jammed, and supply lines can be cut, she explained to her students. When that happens, your ability to adapt and survive using available resources becomes more important than your training with advanced weapons. Corporal Ojin ran communications and intelligence workshops that attracted students from species renowned for their information-gathering capabilities. His demonstration that human intuition could sometimes identify patterns faster than sophisticated analytical systems challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence gathering. Data analysis is important, but don't ignore what your instincts tell you about incomplete information. Jin taught his mixed species classes. Sometimes you have to make decisions before you have all the facts you want. The research facility had also become a diplomatic hub, where species that had been enemies for generations found neutral ground to explore cooperation. The human ability to adapt to different cultural requirements made them effective mediators in disputes that had seemed intractable. Dr. Park Mina's biological research had expanded beyond academic interest to practical applications. Her studies of different species' physiological responses to stress had led to developments in medical treatment and psychological therapy that benefited everyone. Understanding how different species react to trauma helps us develop better support systems for soldiers returning from combat, she explained during a presentation to the Galactic Medical Association. Humans process stress differently than most species, but the principles of recovery and adaptation are universal. As the first year of operation concluded, the transformed research facility received an unexpected visitor. A delegation from the Galactic Council arrived to formally recognize the site as the first interspecies military and scientific cooperation center. Commander Yul Tae represented humanity during the dedication ceremony, which was attended by officials from over 30 different species. Many of the attendees had been enemies of each other until recently, but the human example of turning conflict into cooperation had inspired broader diplomatic initiatives. This facility represents a new approach to interspecies relations, Tae addressed the assembled delegates. Instead of fighting over our differences, we've chosen to learn from them. Humans didn't become part of galactic civilization by conquering it. We became part of it by proving that cooperation is more powerful than conflict. Captain Kang Hyun received promotion to colonel and assignment to establish similar facilities on 3 other worlds. His success at Kepler 442b had demonstrated that human military expertise could be shared constructively, rather than used only for destruction. The 12 of us started this by defending a small research station, Hyun told the assembled crowd. Now thousands of beings from dozens of species are learning to work together instead of fighting each other. That's a victory worth more than any battle. As the ceremony concluded and ships from across the galaxy departed to spread news of humanity's new role in galactic affairs, the original research team reflected on how much had changed. They had expected to spend their careers studying alien life forms in isolation,